Howdy, folks. Welcome to another episode of The Inciting Incident. I'm still your host, Tim Shields. I think we're going to have a really good conversation today, a powerful one. My next guest is Happy Ali. He's a transformational coach, master clinical hypnotherapist, master NLP practitioner, and intuitive guide dedicated to helping people awaken their highest potential. His work bridges the science of the mind with the spirituality of the soul, empowering individuals to dissolve subconscious blocks, reclaim inner clarity, and step into the fullest expression of who they are meant to be. Hey, who doesn't want that? Happy's spiritual journey began after a near-death experience in 1995, a moment that shattered his old worldview and opened a profound gateway into higher consciousness. Recognizing that spirituality was only part of the picture, he went on to earn his bachelor degree of arts in psychology from UCLA, deepening his understanding of the human psyche. But it was the devastating loss of his 4-year-old son in 2014 that transformed his path forever. Rather than collapse into grief, Happy chose to reclaim joy, embody resilience, and fulfill his calling to help others rise from their own darkest moments. Happy, I'm really happy to welcome you. No pun, well, I guess pun intended, but you know.
Thank you. Don't you love reading those long bios in the beginning of?
It's the hardest part of the show. I'm always relieved when that's over. So I also want to mention that you're also the author of the Intuition Bible and Charisma Within. So
yes,
I always start, and I think this will be very timely, with the question: who were you? Where were you? And did you have any idea who you wanted to be when you were 17?
You know, I want to say no, but I did, because when I was 10, I think the first book I bought was a psychology book, and it was so dense and I didn't really understand what it was, but there was something that drew me to psychology and helping others. And what I dreamt of being was someone who was a baker in Iran, where I was born, and I lived till I was 10. There is a store devoted to making bread. And I wanted to be a bread maker because it's symbolized sustenance of life. So I can tell that from the very beginning, there was something within me that wanted to not only work with people's minds, but also feed their bodies in such a different way. So it was all about others. But that didn't really translate into anything until I had my near-death experience when I was 17, when without going into too much detail, but I will tell you the results of what happened, not so much the details of how it happened.
I mean, I'm pretty fascinated with them. Around 17 or 18, I read a book about near-death experiences, became obsessed with it. And then when my father passed away, I learned, of all places, from Rolling Stone magazine, there was an article about near-death experiences, and I followed, this trail, and I wound up learning about IANS, International Association Near-Death Experiences. And I used to just go after my dad died to find solace and sit in the back of the room and listen to all these people's experiences.
Did you ever have one?
No, but it was just this spiritual seeking and, trying to make this connection and resolve, the passing of my father and stuff.
It's amazing because when you have one, it's like a shortcut to 10 years of meditation, I think, or 20 years of meditation. And if you do it in a way that you end up with the results and with the information that you get coming back, you end up, jumping timelines.
Yeah.
In a way that life would never provide in such a short period. But mine was one of those things where I went to bed thinking that I was going to die, and my body was pretty much full of poison that I had fed myself. I cooked it into my spaghetti. I really didn't see the point in living. I felt like life was I had a lot of friends. I was very wise for my age. And I had a lot of friends who were in their 30s and their 40s, and they seemed to have the same problems. And it was not exclusive to them or anyone that I've met. It was just the same thing: money problems, relationship problems, trying to figure out the mundane stuff, trying to figure out the big stuff. It was just this huge pile of problems that seemed to just change as we got older. And there was no end in sight. And I thought, gosh, I'm so curious what happens next. And I was so curious what happens next, because I don't want to say I was depressed. I just want to know that I was curious. I really want to say I was curious. That was my thing. Curiosity was and is always going to be the thing that pushes me forward. And I thought, okay, well, if everyone's gonna die, then it can't be that bad. I'm gonna just kill myself. And I don't recommend anyone committing or trying to commit suicide because I do believe karmically we have to come and pay it all back. So don't do it because you end up in a worse spot than you did before. But I had a very interesting family that was prophetic dreamers. We all dream stuff in advance, and it's just part of our reality. It's not something that, whether you're scientific or not, and you're in our family, you have to believe it because it's just fact all over the place.
Precognition, right?
Precognition. So I was about to die. Basically, I ate enough of my food that I could withstand because it was so bitter, with all the pills that were in it, and I closed my eyes to go to sleep, so excited in a way that I was going to die and not come back. And I remember the phone ringing, and my mom lived in another country, 12 hours time difference. And I pushed the speaker button because that's really all the energy that I had to push. And it was my mom, and she said, I just woke up from a nightmare that you're not eating well. So I need you to promise me you're going to eat well. And I said, okay, mom. And she could tell that I was sleepy and it was nighttime. And so I saw like this tiny little bit of spaghetti on the plate, and I thought, God, I gotta keep my promise because I'm always a man of my word. I'm the most authentic person. I try to be the most authentic person I know. Um, and I took that last bite, and the bitterness kicked my gag reflex in, and it made me just vomit all over the place. And all of a sudden, I was covered with, you know, red sauce, but I passed out. And while I passed out, assuming that I was never going to wake up, I think there's a level of resistance that I had given up. I had just surrendered to the world. And when you surrender, your energy rises and you go and tap into something greater. And I remember the dark, I remember the love, I remember all this wonderful feelings. I don't remember the light. And I remember the faces of the people that I had unresolved issues with being very important. And I remember like it was almost like they were coming through to and through my visual field, showing me that this person, you need to fix it, these issues with this person, this person, this person. And it was very clear that I needed some correction to be done. And I remember just feeling wonderful of going to sleep and then waking up in the morning for my alarm clock, which I never thought I would actually wake me up because I had to go to work. But I woke up so happy, so calm, so peaceful, and so full of wisdom that I did not have prior to my experience. And I just assumed that I had died. And, you know, some great big person up there thought, hey, let's not waste a 17-year-old body. Let's put a new soul in there. And that's wise, that knows what they're doing, that knows all about the universe, knows all about energy, knows all about everything, and has superpowers. Basically, I could see things in advance. Like a door would open, and then I would look, and the door would still be closed. And then 2 seconds later, the door would open with whoever was going to walk in. And it was just this amazing thing that was verifiable. It wasn't just a dream that I had or something. It was just a new human being was born, but it was me, but it was the true essence of me with
Okay.
the purpose. I just knew that I had to tell the world about this. I had to teach happiness. I had to teach about energy. I had to teach about the soul's infinite intelligence and its infinite existence. And there was so much. And then, you know, tell people that as a 17-year-old, and they thought, you know, you're nuts. You just had like a weird dream, or you're making shit up. So I just became really happy. And that's when my name was born. And because so many people told me that it was just a phase, I decided to tattoo my name, not on my body, but as a legal name on my on my, you know, all my documents, and legally had my name change. And even
It's
though,
like you created a whole new character from
yeah,
this upgrade.
yeah, I mean, it created it for me
Yeah.
I just cemented it. And although professionally my name is Happy Ali, and personally anyone knows me only knows me as Happy, and I don't like to be called anything other than that. I legally changed my last name to Happy, and my first name is still Ali, but don't call me that. And and because I wanted my children to carry on the legacy, and my children now are the happy children. When you go to the school, I'm like, I'm picking up the happy twins, and so it's the legacy lives on. So, and that was the beginning, and that was really. But soon, people just kind of. I was writing the stuff down, but people told me, you need to get a real job, you need to figure stuff out, and then I became a makeup artist because I was an artist. So that's how it all began.
Wow. That is a wild story. I mean, at one point when you said a new soul came in, it was like a refreshed soul, not like a walk in or something like that.
Not a walk in, not a
Yeah,
walk,
yeah,
because I still was very much me. It
yeah.
it was almost like if you peel off all the layers, take out all the trauma, you know.
Who doesn't want that?
Yeah, and it is. I mean, I do recommend it, but I do feel that it's not necessary to go through that, and really admire and respect all the difficulties in life that allow us to grow little by little by little, because it preps us slowly and you transform slowly. And that's why the soul came here. But it was nice for me to get a little shortcut.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, that's got to be once you have an experience like that, there's no way to go back to the old self. I mean, did you have trouble sort of integrating with society and, with you already were wise. I mean, when I was younger, I always gravitated to older people too. And I felt out of place with my peers. And so like, how did you manage that sort of transformation?
Well, you immediately lose a lot of people.
Yeah.
Anytime you become someone new, people that cannot accept who you are will just stop hanging out with you, or the fact that you can't resonate with them on the same level you did before makes you just naturally fall apart. I feel like I had to like lose everybody and then slowly start meeting people that only knew me as this new version.
Yeah.
That was really the thing. And people like my sister, who, you can't get rid of your sister. Um, we just stopped talking for about 15 years because she just never could understand who I am, until who I have become, until years later when she had become someone new and we resonated on the same page. But it is, anytime you become someone new, and I tell that to all my clients as I work with them, I said, once you change who you are on the inside, expect people to drop off. And that is just the fact. And if a lot of people will revert back to their old self because their world is falling apart. But I always say, don't revert back. See what the universe is going to show you now based on the person that you are now, because the universe is a mirror, a direct mirror of who you are on the inside.
100%. And you're putting out a new frequency and vibration. So, you just have to see the process through. You are going to draw those people into your life. But if you go back to the old, you're, you're getting pulled down to a lower level of consciousness where life is propelling you into the next level, into the next journey. So you become a makeup artist. What's that like? Where does the transition come into what you're doing now? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of steps in
Well,
there.
I'll make it really fast. It was, first of all, after a couple of years of writing the stuff out that I learned, it started to like fade away a little bit. So I started studying other people's teachings because I was very hell bent on not reading a single book, which I wish I would have read, but I just didn't want my message to be diluted. And
I get that.
I started studying the Kabbalah for about 8 years, and then until I discovered the law of attraction by Esther Hicks and realized how much of what she taught was the same as what I had downloaded, I didn't really go back to my original purpose. But it was also, there was a time when I was in my late 20s, and I had a dream that I was going to have a son, and they introduced me to the son, handed me the son, told me who was going to have my baby. And I was gay, so it wasn't like a thing that was very accessible. And the dream like showed me who my son was, what his name was, who's going to carry the baby. And I met my child, and that was pretty much the moment that I feel like soul aspect of me said, hey, this is the time that we're going to put you back on your path, because it was literally my Saturn return, which is when I was 28. And
Mm-hmm.
like, you need to go back on the path. And I did not want to have a baby. I didn't want to, but she was already married to another woman and they already had a daughter. So it was very much like, okay, I could be a hands off, but still involved as a father. And I decided we had a baby, turkey baster style, and she became pregnant. His name was Sky, and I adopted their daughter, Faith, who's 20 now, almost 20 now. And that changed the way that I thought as a human being. I thought, what do I want to leave as a legacy for my children? Because now I have these people, and I don't want to be someone who just, they're like, oh, the dad was a makeup artist. I made people feel good on the outside. I'm like, I need to go back in. So I wrote my first book right then and there, called The Charisma Within. And I didn't really want to publish it because I was a high school dropout, because I was bullied as a gay person. And later I just had to have two jobs to take care of myself. And then I went to Iran to visit my family, where I usually teach makeup. And my mom said, do you want to teach makeup? And I said, no, I want to teach metaphysics. And she said, well, my other aunt showed up, and my aunt showed up and said, hey, we have a class. We can probably fill 70 people. Can you speak for 4 hours?
Oh my gosh.
In Farsi, which is not the most comfortable language for me. And I said, I'll do it. Just put him in there. And we sold out. I spoke for 4 hours, and I got off that stage. And it was as if somebody breathed new life into me and said, wow, this is your purpose. I had another sold out show, came back here, quit my job, enrolled in school, and did community college, and wanted to go to UCLA. And the day before I got into UCLA, following another dream which showed the death of two people that I love, my son and my best friend died. And I remember being in the hospital with my daughter in the ICU and not knowing if she's going to live, and getting an email that says, congratulations, you're UCLA bound. And I thought, how messed up is this?
Wow. The universe is what it is wild.
I wish I would have gotten that message a day before so I could have celebrated it with my child. But it was one of those things where I felt like the universe said, hey, I know feels like we're taking everything away from you, but we're also reminding you that you have a path, because I believe that the soul talks to you all the time, and divine timing is way better than what the timing that you'd prefer.
True story. Always.
So I went to school, and my son kept showing up in my dreams, telling me I was going to have other children, and I didn't have the money for it. But somehow I ended up with my twins as a single father. About a year and a half later, graduated UCLA, and just this life was inevitable. And I felt like, who better to teach happiness and following your path than somebody who's been tested the way that I've been tested?
Yeah.
And my credibility went from here to there, not only as a prophetic dreamer, not as an intuitive, but as somebody who really believes in their own methodology of how to be happy and how to tap into your soul's wisdom.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many sort of charlatans on social media and all this stuff. And, I don't think it's the only path, but suffering is certainly a path to awakening. And if you were going to follow somebody's advice, and, it's good to know that somebody has gone through the depths and they have made it out the other side, and they have a powerful message.
I agree. And I tell people not to shy away from pain. I always say, if something's happening to you and your life's falling apart, just go through it, crawl your way out of it. But know that there's a reason that you're going to gain some spiritual muscles along the way. The only reason that the universe gives you adversity is because it needs to remind you that you need to grow certain muscles.
Yeah.
That what you are capable of doing and the life that you deserve to have requires you to have a certain level of strength and wisdom that you don't have right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I, as a podcast host, just like yourself, everyone I interview, that has had an enlightening experience has gone through hell. So,
Yeah.
and I always say, why are we running away from difficulties when those are the moments that define us and refine us?
Yeah. I probably in between junior and senior year of college, I was always so in my head. And it was the first time I had like some trouble with the first love of my life. And then it was like I was a young writer and I had writer's block, and it just felt like the dam was just and I there was one night where I really kind of considered, like, I don't think I can go on anymore. But in my new book, I dream tethering, I call that the transformation chamber. And when you're in the transformation chamber, you just got to hold on to the walls and see this process through. I mean, the butterfly in the chrysalis uses its own enzymes to literally liquefy itself to become something new. So, do you want to fly or do you want to die on the branch of the milkweed? We have a choice. That is the human condition. We always have a choice point, and the choice is, if you the most distilled level, it's love or fear.
That's
Like, what you going to choose?
that's all it is. It's funny because I designed a program called the Human Chrysalis.
Oh wow.
So that was, but I never really followed through with it. I just kind of saved the domain for when I'm ready for it. But yeah, I do believe that we're only here to transform. And the minute we forget that as human beings, we either die or we're
Mm-hmm.
pushed into this extreme struggle. And I really, I try to be consciously aware of my transformation. And it's really hard to do it on your own when you're not going through a difficult time. I remember last year, I was having a really smooth life. And I was talking to my therapist because I believe everyone should have a coach and everyone should have a therapist or one or the other. It is not an option. If you think you can do it on your own, well, you're never on your own because you have your guides and spirit, blah, blah, blah with you. But it's nice to have someone to hold space for you, no matter who you are. All the successful people have coaches and therapists. And I said, hey, ever since my life has been so good, my creative level or creativity level is down. It's horrible. And I think I need some drama. And it was so funny because I got drama and I was like, I take it back.
Yeah, you got to be careful what you put out there in words.
But what I got out of the drama was so many new techniques on how to deal with drama, how to deal with the voices in my head, and the techniques that I teach now. Because I was I was about to publish a book called The Intuition Bible, which is how and why to tap into your inner wisdom, and it was all about. Uh, it was inspired to me because I feel like there's too much noise out in the world, and the true well. If you talk to any metaphysical teacher, any meditation teacher, any wise person, they say, the final frontier is within. You got to go within. You got to meditate. You got to do this. But I thought, I need to create a instruction manual on how many ways you can tap in. So I did, and I created this beautiful textbook, and I think it's a classic. But I realized, that's only for super spiritual people who are ready to like really learn.
Yeah.
And then it led to what I teach now, which is called soul tapping. And soul tapping is really a way to learn which voice in your head to trust.
That is a very important and powerful thing we all need to learn.
People think that they're the ones that think in their thoughts and it's coming from a singular source, but it's coming from multiple sources. There's the soul talks to you, your trauma, drama, what I call your coal. Coal is like these little bits of trauma that we have stored in our body. We're either cold tapping, soul tapping, running on instinct. And if you can decide to really learn what the qualities and what the attributes of each voice is, so you can recognize the voice as you're thinking it, you can put each voice in its place and say, hey, I'm soul tapping. I'm going to prioritize this. I'm cold tapping. I'm going to minimize its effect on my psyche. Or these are my instincts. I'm going to respect them and honor them, but know that they're only fear-based and survival-based. So I really teach people, and I love doing this. And this is something that has really changed my life because I'm not immune to thoughts that are
Disruptive.
very disruptive, very,
Yeah.
very disruptive, be disruptive because I have habits that I'm not proud of. I do stuff, and sometimes I end up making decisions that are not necessarily the best for me. And
Yeah.
then I end up judging myself or predicting the future based on my past actions. And I say, wait a minute, you're cold tapping. This is just your trauma, your drama talking. So let's put it in its place. I talk about it as a fifth grader teaching you algebra. I'm like, no, I'm going to learn it from the professor, which is my soul. I'm going to prioritize that noise as opposed to prioritizing the fifth grader because the fifth grader only knows what it knows. And professors spent, eons learning what they're going to learn, or the wise sage. So
Yeah.
I really feel like learning what voice in your head is more relevant or more important or needs to be more prioritized is really the key to a happy life.
I mean, that is learning the art of intuition, isn't it? It's learning the felt path. And that voice is not anxious or disruptive. It's loving, it's gentle, and it arises through your heart, as opposed to like, the problem with modern society is everybody's in their freaking heads. And it's about marrying those two and marrying the left and right hemispheres of the brain. It's about balance. But we've been so, from a very young age, taught to think and analyze everything and not to feel into it. And I think it's very interesting. Like, obviously, you are a very feeling person if you can tap into these dream worlds. And so, is this something that has kind of moved throughout your lineage? This dreaming aspect?
It's from I feel like first of all, every single person has it.
Yeah.
This part of our birthright. Everything that I do, everyone else can do. It's just a matter of whether your family members or the people you were raised around fostered the importance of, let's say, prophetic dreaming. It's really, some people say, some people have superpowers, some people don't, but it's just a matter of whether anything that you foster, anything that you deem important becomes part of your reality. And a lot of people don't want to rely on something that is so symbolic, that is hard to decipher, but is so valuable because I can tell you that my dreams have shaken me to the core. And they have also, I mean, I got to meet my sons, all of them, all three of them, prior to having.
Incarnating. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I met my son Sky, who died, a year and a half before he was born. I met my sons Cyrus and Dario a year before they were born, and I also got to meet them as adults and with their full personalities before they were born, so that I was comforted in a way that I needed to be comforted, to know that my children were not going to die at a young age. I needed to know that they were going to be adults, and I got to meet their personalities. So now when I see the difference in their personalities, for example, and sometimes I'm frustrated because one can do one thing, one can't do another. And I remember the dream where one was a skater and the other one was a very intellectual, a scholar. I just remember, oh, this is who they were before they were even born. And
Yeah.
these are helpful things. And I teach people how to figure this out in my book, the Intuition Bible. But I don't think that anyone can access any information that they don't think that is important, because there's so much information coming at us within and without, that our brain has to eliminate about 99% of the data for us to be able to even function and process reality. So 99% of the data that's coming through us is being deleted. And it's stored in the body, so you can access it through hypnotherapy or other stuff. But most of the time, reality is really just a skewed version of reality based on your beliefs. So that's why two people can be in the same car, have the same experience, see the same things, and then have two complete interpretations of what really happened. Because
Yeah.
inner reality, like nothing that you see or feel or experience is happening on the outside. It's all being constructed in the mind, in the brain. Your brain
Yeah.
making this up based on its own programming. So no two brains are alike. So it's really important to understand, okay, so if I believe something to be important, if I foster that, if I work on it, then my beliefs will change, and my reality will change, and what I receive will change.
Yeah, I I had kind of this traumatic experience about a week ago, and uh, it's sort of for a couple days. It kind of stayed in my body or whatever, but I did a little bit of work to get it out. And the next day I went for a long walk, and I always try and find the spiritual, meaning of it. And it was like I was in such kind of was in so in my mind and fear and contraction, and my life, my work is about you know mastering surrender and trust, because that's what I'm trying to do as an artist. Like, it's a pathless path. And this just hit me right in the core wounds, the programming conditioning of childhood, and which you probably called the coal.
Hmm.
And it really just kind of forced me to be like, oh, you want to worry about this? Boom, here, I'm gonna actually take this away, or whatever. And it really kind of left me with a whole new level of kind of like, okay, I surrender at a deeper level. You got me again. So, I'm always curious how people define surrender and trust.
I'm really lucky because I have no faith at all because I've experienced the other side. So I wouldn't call it faith. I would call it a knowing.
Yeah.
So, and most people have to have faith in all of this stuff that I talk about.
Yeah.
So, having faith is very important, and I know that I have a leg up when it comes to that because I when life goes awry, I just know that things are going to work out. But if you truly know that you're here to transform, because your soul is going to leave without your body, it's only going to leave with its own transformation, the karma that is cleared, and it's and it learning its own power in a physical body. If you really know that you're here to upgrade, you're here to transform, and the only way to transform is to, go through an obstacle course. When you do that, when you really think like that, then you address every obstacle in a very different way. And every time you've, you know, carried a new coal, which is trauma, um, it's not there for you to just have and weigh your body down. It's there for you to process. The only reason we have trauma stored in our body is because we didn't deal with it the first time around. So let's say whatever happened to you last week was something that you didn't really get honor and respect
Mm-hmm.
and try to learn through. It would have become trauma. It would have gone in your body, stayed there in present tense, adding a whole new weight to your mental bandwidth, allowing you to function through life in a much smaller way and show up in a much smaller way. So I always tell people, when you're having something, give it the time and the attention that it needs to show itself, whatever it is, and try to figure out the deeper meaning. Allow the human aspect of you to feel the pain. Because a lot of times, a lot of spiritual people will say, hey, I see the bigger picture. I'm not going to deal with this because this thing is not that important in the bigger picture. But yes, it is not important in the bigger picture, but your body's still in pain. Your body is still storing that. So what you have to do is really honor the pain that the body's going through, allow it to express itself, give it the light that it needs, and the light will burn the coal away and turn it into ashes. And that's when
I love that.
phoenix can rise from the ashes. So I always say, if you avoid a trauma or a coal, you will become a drug addict, or something along those lines, because you'll have to
Yeah.
numb your feelings. So bring it up, turn it loud, bring the light to it, put a lighter on it, give it its attention, and I promise you, there is no coal that will remain if you light it up with fire. And the fire is your attention, your love, your heart, and it's not a negative thing when I say fire, because really most people try to avoid their trauma. And unfortunately, a lot of people actually get too involved in the story of the trauma
Yes.
than the pain of the trauma.
Yep.
Pain of the trauma. That what's left is not the story. What's left is the pain. What's left is the bruise. So you want to, it's almost like people get a cut, which we'll call the coal. And instead of trying to just heal it and nourish it and take care of it, they go back to the story of how they got the bruise and how they got the bruise and how to be afraid of whatever cut them or whatever it is. And they get so involved in the story that they create multiple bruises, because you take the knife back out to try to analyze it, you might actually hit yourself in other spots and get more bruises or cut yourself deeper. But really, all trauma and drama wants is to be heard, to be expressed. And then when you give it enough attention, it stops wanting attention and it just poof disappears.
Yeah. And doesn't the pressure turn a coal into diamond, or am I?
I love that.
Yeah.
These are wonderful analogies when you can I don't use that analogy, although I do
Yeah.
love it. I do love it. I don't use that analogy because it requires, it's mentally, when I think of that, I think, yeah, you have to put pressure on the coal.
Exactly. Yeah.
I always like just turning into ashes and making a phoenix rise. Because it is true. Well, when you do have a lot of pressure, and when you do are a body full of coal, and if you allow the pressure to, really mold you and create you, then you will end up as a diamond. But
Yeah.
I think that we are all just a bunch of diamonds anyway. Um,
Hmm.
because life is never going to be easy. I mean, I have friends that they had a really easy life and life was good and they had a lot of money. And it was funny because, like, maybe at least a handful of them just lost their homes in the Palisades and lost all their clothes and lost everything that they've acquired in the last 30, 40 years. And they had to start over. And it was almost like they're living a new life now and they're alive now, even though they're mourning the loss of their stuff. But it's almost like they started fresh again because the soul said, hey, you're getting too comfortable and you need to figure out stuff and see how the rest of the world lives.
Yeah. When I was, I guess it was actually April 1st, 2013. Um, I lived in Queen Anne in Seattle, that neighborhood, and my house and two houses on either side were the largest fire
Wow.
in that neighborhood that year. And as a young man, I was like, I asked for big things to write about. If I want to have a big life, I have to have big things to write about. And you got to be careful what you wish for. But it was really, it did wake me up in a way. And it was on the news, it spread across social media, and I had all these people reaching out from different parts of my lives. Like one guy I hadn't talked to in like 10 years worked at Nike, and he's like, what's your size? And he sent me all these samples. And so it was, it was a physical karmic cleanse. And I was like, oh, well, and I had just been traveling around the world with nothing but a backpack. So I was like, well, I guess for 15 months. So I was like, I guess it's a good time to start over. Don't need all that shit. To circle back to something you were saying, I have this new model of self-actualization in my new work. Instead of it being at the tip of a triangle in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's based on concentric circles, because self-actualization is not at, a tip of a triangle from which there's no deviation or fall, or it's a dynamic state of expansion contraction according to where your state of consciousness is in that moment. And every circle represents a greater level of consciousness. And I think that to get from one level of consciousness to the next, you have to overcome fear, trauma, or limited thinking.
Of course.
Are there any limited thinking that you had to really let go of in your life to kind of, or is there one in particular? I mean, we limit ourselves. We're human potential. We're really unlimited beings, but we get into the programs and we keep ourselves sort of small.
There are countless things that every period of your life, there's one confining belief. I call them confining because they confine you to the past.
Yeah.
I like limiting because it limits you, but confining, really, it's like a prison that keeps you in a very specific space and place in your life. But there was so much. It was from being a child, being a very young kid, gay kid that didn't have the same abilities in sports. That was the one thing. I can't throw a ball. I can't catch a ball. Then it became, okay, I don't speak English. I can't write. I can't be a author. Then it was about finding out I was gay, say I'll never be a parent, and really just living that truth. And then dropping out of school, saying I'll never be able to do certain things. My parents, leaving for Iran, and me living here on my own, thinking I had to have two jobs. And and I'll never be able to educate myself and have enough time to go be educated. And then somebody told me that I would never finish what I start, because at the time I couldn't finish what I started because I am all over the place. I'm like shiny object. I'm just whatever
You're
shiny.
creative. You're
Yeah,
creative, and you're always pulling in new streams of information.
always. And then I would never really follow through. And then I really thought that was my identity, someone who never finishes what I started. And it was a moment about 10 years after I got that story, I got that story stuck in my head that I thought, look at what you finished. And I had a child by then, and I had written a book, and I had done so much. And at the time, I did a lot of recreational drugs, and I had to be really resourceful to find those or afford those. And I thought, you know what? I know this is a horrible example, but you have never wanted something that you didn't get, even though it was destructive at the time. So I thought, okay, that story is bull. And I remember going back into school, and the first year of first semester of my writing class, my English class, in college, and my teacher said, you don't know how to write. You can't even write an essay. You'll never really amount to much when it comes to writing. And I really just want to go to her and show her my many books that I've written, the ones that I haven't published and haven't said, hey, look,
Yeah.
last book we had to cut about 20,000 words off because it was getting too big. And then right now at the same time, like, I have to say, there are certain things that my dad cannot do or is not really good at. And he raised me till I was 10. And those went into my subconscious. And sometimes I have these fears that I'm going to be my dad, even though I love my dad and he's very loving, but I have like his shortcomings is what I'm going to have. And I have to look at how I'm raising my children and say, no, you are not your father, even though that's the story that keeps running in my head.
Yeah.
And then I have to say, am I cold tapping or soul tapping? Because the soul knows your potential. It knows how to create. The cold just knows your past history and wants to regurgitate the past. And I have to say, no, did your dad do this for their children? I'm taking my kids on a third trip this year. We're going out of the country for the second time. And, of course, I'm not making these just millions of dollars that I want to be making, but I'm still, we're going on vacation. We have a beautiful house, and we have a beautiful car, and we have beautiful everything. And they get to have soccer practice and all this stuff. And I thought, it's so funny that the evidence of your life could show that you're absolutely wrong with your confining beliefs. Yet,
That's what I learned last week. It's like, look at the evidence around you, dummy. Wake up.
and look at the evidence in the past, because the thing is, what people don't understand is when you're in a funk, you can only feel one mood at a time. You can't feel multiple moods at once. So when you're in a funk, if you look back in your life, your brain would cherry pick all the things that were that mood, that were funky. And if you try to predict the future, you can only predict things that might be funky. So if you're in a funk is all you get. So I always say, don't analyze your life. Don't try to figure stuff out until you get in a happier state, and learn how to change your state. And when you're in a happy state, then look at the past. Then you can access all the things. My sister believes that she had the most traumatic life experience ever growing up. And she really just thinks, we had the worst parents, and we had parents who kind of let us do what we did. And she thinks our childhood was horrible. And then she just recently reconnected with a bunch of other students that she went to a school with when she was in, like, maybe primary school. And
Mm-hmm.
they kept telling her who she was. And the person that they kept describing was nothing like the person that she thought she was. And she said, I don't know, I must have been a really fun kid. I said, well, I'm in my mind. I said, I know she won't be watching this. Um, I, I said, wow, so how could you have had such a horrible childhood if you were such a great kid?
Yeah.
So it's really just all these beliefs, they're beliefs that shape our current state, and
Their stories.
their stories. And then we look back and we always try to find a story from our past that matches our current mental state. So change your state, then think about new ideas. Think about what you want to believe about yourself and others. And everything that you believe is limiting you, every single thing is something that somebody else has that is living the life that you want. There's not
Mm-hmm.
people There's not a single thing that you think is limiting you that somebody else has not taken and accepted about themselves and got the thing that you think you would not get because of what you think you have. So it's really just stories we tell and limitations we put on ourselves. And it's ridiculous, but it's part of our evolution, because if we didn't have the limiting beliefs to overcome, then where would the transformation be?
Exactly. You talking about your book, you explore inner charisma in the charisma within. So, in your view, what creates authentic magnetism or presence?
Well, you just said the word right there. The word is authentic.
Yeah.
Authenticity. It's about, really, to me, there's this misconception about charisma as something that somebody just has and is born with, and they have to be attractive, and they have to have wealth, and they have to have presence. And usually they think the things that people have is what gives them that confidence that to walk into a room and command uh, the attention that somebody who's charismatic has. And you have to be an extrovert and all this stuff. And I really believe that these are misconceptions, and that true confidence and that true charisma, that true magnetism comes from within. And it comes from when you go into a room, not comparing yourself to others. It comes, goes, it happens when you go into a room knowing that you want to be as authentic as you can be and shine the light that you and only you possess, and to accept who you are physically, to accept that you don't want to make random friends just so you have more friends, to figure out, to uh, the idea, the concept that you contribute an energy into a room and choose what kind of energy you add to the room. There's so many things. There are 15 steps in my book, and it's all about changing something within your mind and showing up different because of who you are as a soul. You are a unique star in the sky, and no two stars are the same. And if you take one of them out of the sky and make them shine less bright, then the sky is not as beautiful. Or if you make all the stars look the same and all the planets look the same, because that's what we're trying to do right now. Everybody wants to look like the Kardashians. Everyone wants to be a social media influencer. Everyone wants to be the same. Everyone has, there's 3 people at my gym that I can't tell them apart. They're 3 women, and I cannot tell them apart. I have to walk up close and say, "Hey, is it you?" And then I'm like, "Oh, no, no, no. You just have the exact same lips, same body, same hips, same
Yeah.
hair, and
Same plastic surgeon.
same plastic surgeon." I mean, different plastic surgeons, but
Yeah. Yeah.
what's become the ideal of what you're supposed to look like is the big lips and the big everything else,
Yeah.
and the same hair, same everything, and they're just literally copying what they see, and that's what's giving them their sense of very fleeting confidence.
Hmm.
But what they don't realize is that the person that they're emulating is somebody who came up with that on their own. And,
Yeah.
and if you come up with more stuff on your own, you are going to lose people. But when you walk into a room, the people that are meant to be drawn to you will be drawn to you. And that is what true charisma is.
Yeah. I I talk about in my, well, it's actually from my first book, but I evolved it in this one, the soul lake. And I think everybody has a soul lake, and it's really kind of a trigger to get us to our authentic self. And within the authentic self is is our calling. And that's what I sort of say, what the soul envisioned before we expressed human. And I think one of the greatest sources of anxiety and depression and everything in life is not honoring their calling, not honoring that inner truth. So, how do you coach people to get to that beautiful seed within that turns into the blossom?
It's easier for some and harder for others because it depends on where they are in their lives, whether they followed their passion or whether they followed what other people thought they should do. There are so many cultures that the parents already expect you to have a job. You have to be a lawyer, an engineer, or a doctor, and they've just followed the path and they've forgotten who they are. But I always take people back to their childhood and say, "Hey, what lit you up?" Or what is it that you want to do when you're not working? What is it that excites you? And a lot of times, a lot of people that have, especially the ones that have lost their ways, they find themselves admiring very unique people that they always look up to. And I always say, the person that you're looking up to and you think that they're amazing, the only reason that you think they're amazing is because they have qualities that you have within you that are not expressed, or that's who you want to be. So it's really easy. There's so many hints and so many signs that point to who your authentic self is meant to be. Uh, but unless you have somebody kind of walking you through it and you get really introspective when it comes to what lights you up, you really can't figure it out. But childhood is a great way to see what lit you up as a child
Yeah.
and what you did. And also really looking at who you admire and why, and know that whatever quality they have is already within you. And the only reason that you love them is because it's resonating with a deeper, um, much more expansive version of you that is
Yeah.
longing for that. And those are just two of the, 20 ways that, or more, that you can figure out what your passion is.
Yeah. I think that's really great advice. I mean, external reality is just this giant mirror to you, but there are all these fractals within the mirror. And when you tune into that one fractal, which you just said, somebody you admire, that is because it's reflecting that quality back that needs to be expressed and exercised and brought into the world because it's probably your gift.
It's always that way. It is always.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at the people that I've admired over time, and one of them just exuded confidence and not giving a crap what other people thought, even though maybe internally she had a lot of other issues. But what I saw of her was confidence. Or another person was people that wrote books and really had changed people's lives, or people that took time to listen to others, even though I was never a really good listener. I was too busy talking, and I didn't like to be nosy, so I never liked to listen. But I apparently had this quality that I can listen to people and make them feel heard. But I loved people that knew how to listen, even though I didn't know how to listen.
Yeah.
So there's so many things. But when I look back at my childhood, I remember taking flowers, and I was maybe 6 years old, and smushing them, trying to make medicine to heal. But it was all related to healing. It was all about mental, physical, soul. So I believe in the mind, body, soul balance. And I
Yeah.
like anybody who tries to be I don't believe, I don't like the word healer, a facilitator of self-improvement needs to
Yeah.
address all of it. So I address the soul by tapping. I do a hypnotherapy session where people bring me their questions, and um, I take them deep under to tap their highest self. And then I ask them their own question, and they answer their own question from their soul perspective. Then I
Yeah.
also work with somatic work when I talk about their goals and what the drama is. And then I teach them about their mind and how their mind works, and what's blocking them. So got to always work with the mind, body, and soul. And if you're not doing all that, then you're not going to get the best results.
Yeah. Do you think anybody can be hypnotized?
Being hypnotized has a really weird connotation where
It's got like this Hollywood stage thing where it's like, you're a
uh,
chicken.
no, it's not, because the people who turn into chickens are people who want to put on a good show.
Yeah.
So no one hypnotizes anyone. You are always the one who's hypnotizing yourself. But so what you do is you follow directions. If anyone's good at following directions and not questioning what they're experiencing, they can be hypnotized.
Mm.
If you want to prove that you're not hypnotizable, you will never be hypnotized. So like, for example, so you follow the directions and you understand, and a good hypnotherapist knows how to teach you in advance. So the process of you learning what hypnotherapy is part of the induction. So from the moment you meet me, for example, I'm working on building your trust and teaching you what it's all about. So when you go into that state, you are free, you're letting everything go, and you're following my directions. You're not letting me control you. You're allowing yourself to follow directions. And if you can follow directions, you can be hypnotized. And some people require a couple of tries because the first time they get into their head, the moment you get into the whole point of hypnotherapy is to get into the subconscious, the world of the subconscious,
Mm-hmm.
not actively thinking. It's very passive and it's doing its own thing. And the minute you start questioning, thinking, wondering, doing all this stuff, you go into the conscious mind, you're out of hypno.
Yep.
So I always tell people, like, because I have a client who wanted to learn my hypnotherapy style. So she said, "Can you hypnotize me?" And I said, "Well, you know what? You're already a hypnotherapist. So if you're going to listen to me trying to analyze what I'm doing, are you in the head or are you in the subconscious?" She's like, "I'll be in the head." I said, "Well, then you won't be hypnotized. So if you want me to hypnotize you, you have to do the analyzing after I'm done. I'll record it, I'll play it for you, and you figure it out. But meanwhile, you have to surrender completely. So if you cannot surrender, you cannot be hypnotized."
Yeah. Um, Looking back at your journey from near death to profound loss to deep purpose, is there something you understand about destiny?
I believe that we have a soul purpose. And I know that some people say we don't have a soul contract and we just come here to just have fun and create. But I don't think that a soul that puts so much resources into creating a body, choosing the parents, choosing the location that you were going to be born, and choosing all your characteristics as a human being, and all the details of what you're going to look like, what you're going to, where you're going to be. I don't think that soul really just did it as like, oh, let me just throw you.
Shits and giggles. Yeah.
It wasn't shits and giggles.
Yeah.
The soul has a journey, and the soul designed you to kind of take its work on its journey, its purpose. Your soul has a purpose. You're here for a reason. And meanwhile, you have free will to play around and have a good time and deviate from the path as much as you want, because there is no repercussion if you don't follow your soul's purpose. You just die and you start over again, or you just take off where you left off, because reincarnation's a thing. And but when you follow your soul's purpose, because for me, my soul's purpose, for example, was to help others, to teach what I learned. And I didn't listen, or I did listen, and then people talked me out of it. And then was told that I was going to have a child, which led me to have a desire to follow my destiny. And then he died, which wanted me to cement what I had to do. Then all this stuff, all these things that happened to me over and over and over again were all things that happened because I wasn't listening to my soul's guidance. If I would have listened the very beginning, I might be living a complete different life, but still doing what I do now, but maybe been way more advanced.
Yeah.
Where my career is, how many books I've had. I might have 10 books out by now. But I think that looking at it in a way that, oh, did I make a mistake, or was I supposed to do that? It's all just, that's the wrong way of looking at it. It's really like who you are as a person has to go through certain things, and the more you don't listen to your soul, the more experiences come to you to make you kind of earn and learn, like gain the muscles that you need to be able to sustain the life that you're meant to live. Because maybe my upbringing, or just my way of thinking was not stable enough to be able to do what I do now. So I had to go through all of those steps. So I don't really look at it as I've lost my way or anyone loses their way. I just think this is where you're supposed to be. We're all on the same path, but we're on a different part of the path.
Yeah.
And it's an obstacle course. It is a beautiful obstacle course. And until you realize that it's designed for you, by you, you're not going to really enjoy the process.
Yeah. It's like you're here and you're trying to get here, but there are infinite forking pathways to get there. But I think, the purpose is for the evolution of your soul. And they're just I mean, this is easy to say at this moment when you're not wrapped up in something, but they're just experiences to kind of pivot from and look at and learn from, and hopefully not do it again, or do it again. This did work. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I find myself back taking like 3 steps ahead and then 2 steps backwards and then going ahead. And then I feel like sometimes I'm such a loser. What am I doing with my life? And then I'm like, wait a minute. And my friends, I always say, oh God, I wish I don't know what I'm doing. And my friend said, hey, you just sold out a show where you spoke about soul tapping. And I said, well, yeah, but there's always this but thing that comes up, or I just wish I was, doing this something else. And I said, well, you just got flown to Virginia to speak at the Edgar Casey conference and give
Oh,
a
wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
give a 3-hour talk on intuition at
Yeah.
the Edgar Casey conference. I mean, and to me, like, when you're living life, it's so easy to start getting critical and say, what am I doing with my life? And
Yeah.
the more successful you become and the more things you accomplish, the higher the stakes, which means that the more difficult happiness becomes
Hmm.
because now you're okay. You're as successful as your last project, and
Yeah.
so it's
I
like,
get that. I get that as a writer. Yeah.
I think the only two times I've truly been depressed in my life as an adult, other than my son dying, and in the recent years, was right after the launch of my second book, because I had a big publisher and there was so much writing on it, and it was all in my head.
Yeah.
And once that happened, like the pressure of the success of the book was, and even though it was a number one seller on 4 categories in on Amazon, and it just did really well, and the reviews were amazing. I remember just falling into this deep, deep abyss of like, who am I? What am I doing? God, am I
Yeah.
selling enough? Did I earn back the advance,
Royalty. Yeah. Or advance. Yeah.
whatever? And or the other one was the one that I just put together, and I sold out the area, and I spoke, and I had an amazing team recording it, and it's really, to me, it's my masterpiece to date. And I remember, like, one person in the family or group of the family said, hey, why didn't we have reserved seatings? And I had placed certain people in certain spots. It wasn't based on my connection to them, because in case the thing didn't go the way that I wanted to plant people certain places so they can ask certain questions.
Yeah.
And it was nothing about, everybody was so many people were close to me, and those people like crapped all over my experience for about a week and a half. And what should have been my moment of success turned out to be the most miserable week of my life. And it's just funny because so many people are striving to get to somewhere so they can feel
Yeah.
happy. But a lot of times, as soon as you get there, it's like, you're happy for a second, and then you need to find something else to make you happy. So might as well just be happy, period.
Yeah. Comparison is the thief of joy. And if you get to that internal space, then you become anti-fragile, as some author just put out. But if you could, we'll end on this. If you could transmit one truth or frequency to every person living, something that could, change their mind, change their life, what might that be?
That you're not alone, that you have, not only do you have non-physical intelligence that's running through you, you didn't come on this planet alone. You came with your soul, which is tethered to the entire universe, and its wisdom is always available to and through you. And if you don't feel like you're getting that and you feel too alone in the world, you just haven't learned the techniques to be able to tap into your highest self and inner wisdom. And even if you are feeling like you don't have access to that, the universe brings signs, brings patterns, brings so many things in your life that shows you that you are being supported at all times, and that your soul is always supporting you, sometimes by closing doors, sometimes by opening doors. But the fact that it's supporting you is a non-negotiable, because you are its baby, and it's created you, and it's going to take care of you till the day you die. And don't be afraid to ask other people for help. You didn't come here as an isolated being trying to figure everything out on your own. You came here with community, and you're not any less of a person because you did it. You choose to ask for help.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful, man. I had all these questions for you, but I love when the conversation just goes on its own. So thanks so much for sharing your wisdom and your time. Where can people find you?
So they can go to my website, happyinsights.net, or my link tree, which I'm sure you're going to put in the comments. Link tree will take you to my courses to my Instagram. Instagram is a great place if you want a regular dose of me. But if they go to happyinsights.net, there's a 45-minute hypnotherapy audio that they can listen to, and it'll help them kind of connect to their higher self. But happyinsights.net, it has all my social media, or go to my link tree, which is Linktree Happy Insights.
And is it Happy Alley on Instagram? I think I followed you.
It's Happy Insights Official.
Oh, okay,
So
got it.
the one that has the check mark. Happy Ellie is my Mr. Happy Ellie is my private one that, nothing ever happens on there. But if you put in Happy Ellie, if you Google me, like, everything shows up. I've done enough now to be Googleable.
Excellent. Well, that was great. Thank you so much. You've had quite a journey. So curious to see where the trajectory from here continues to. So keep lighting up minds.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm Tim Shields. This is The Inciting Incident. Like, share, do all that jazz. Share this podcast. Make somebody happy. Let them learn something new. All right. Until next time, folks. Be well. Actually, stay happy. Let's end with that, huh? All right. Ciao.